Hi everyone, this is your host Prasha and welcome to her STEM Stories episode number 101, and this week's iTunes review of the week is by Martina for Protein Imaging. I strongly recommend this podcast to all the people that want to be inspired by powerful stories of women that are in all kinds of STEM fields. The diversity of the guests and the topics they cover is amazing, especially because they talk about their success but also about their struggles and difficulties. To me, listening to these stories of imperfect and brave people is super inspiring. So thank you so much, Martina, because you summed up the show so well. This is exactly what I'm going for, and I'm so glad that it's coming across that way. So I'm really, really grateful for this wonderful review. If you want your review to be read out loud on the episode, please leave it to us on your favorite podcasting app. And in today's episode, we are chatting with our very first STEM couple. So two people who fell in love at a STEM event and who have jobs in STEM, but they're also super, super ambitious about how they want to give back to the STEM world, and everything that they're doing to get there is amazingly inspiring. They really talk about a very important aspect, which is how to manage relationships in high-performing jobs. And the tips and the things that they share in this episode are just mind-blowing. So please keep listening because relationships are a huge part of our lives, and this episode is all about that. So let's get started with Brianne and Fernando's amazing STEM love story. Our guest today is a power couple, Brianne and Fernando, who share honest, vulnerable, and triumphant accounts about their lives, work, and the impact they've made through their community leadership and ventures. As two of the few Latinx engineers, the engineering couple shares about their life growth and career through personal, professional, and leadership development. They both are engineers, so Brianne is a mechanical engineer from Texas A&amp University-Corpus Christi, and Fernando is a civil engineer from Texas A&amp University at College Station. They're both amazing, and they have their own ventures going on, and they also work really closely with their community. So let's get started to learn more about Brianne and Fernando. Hi! Thank you for joining.
For sure.
I know you guys have such a busy schedule, so I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us. We're excited to be your first couple. Woo-hoo.
I know. So I just thought about it when you guys got engaged, and I'm like, you know what? We've been talking about having you on the show for a while, and I said when you got engaged, I said this is perfect. We can have the first couple and talk a lot about relationships because that's such a big thing in STEM and women in STEM and diversity. Because if you don't have supportive partners, then you can't have a high demanding career, and
yeah.
So my first question is obviously, like, tell us a little bit about your current jobs and what you guys do for a living.
So I am a civil engineer. I work in land development. So in a nutshell, I take a raw piece of property and I build whatever the developer or the client is looking for. That could be like a 1 acre site like a McDonald's, or it could go to like a 1 million square foot industrial warehouse. You know, some of the things that I've worked on are schools, hospitals, a few like big box developments, like for example, like a Walmart. And so what I like to tell people is I play Minecraft for a living.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And tell us a little bit about yourself, Brianne.
Sure. So I am a mechanical engineer by trade, and I say I have about 8.5 years of experience in manufacturing because I was very much, when I went to school, thinking I wanted to be a design engineer. I couldn't draw I could not draw stick figures to save my life, but when I took a hand instrument drafting class, it floored me how I could, draw a three-dimensional isometric view. And so the more I started getting into it and just understanding through my internship with the Army, through design for pressure vessels, then I went into interiors for commercial aircraft. Mm-hmm. We actually manufactured the seats for 75% of the commercial airlines, and in that job, I actually essentially created my own rotational program. So I was a tooling engineer, understanding vacuum form molding, injection molding, like how do we actually take care of it, as well as like assembly jigs, fixtures, welding, you name it. And then went into liaison engineering, was essentially just firefighting. Whatever kept anything from shipping off the 7 assembly lines we had, I had to figure out where in the process it went wrong, fix it. And then after that, I ended up actually selling myself as a customer account manager, overseeing Africa, Middle East, Southwest Asia, and India. So I had customers all over the world. I had the opportunity to travel international at only 25 years old, to which I ended up starting my own career as a consultant, starting my own company after being laid off. And then once I started my company a few months in, Peterbilt hired me as a automotive manufacturing engineer. So being able to be an advanced manufacturing engineer, tying in all the assembly lines of interiors. So I kind of have a little bit of everything, but at the end of the day, I was just really obsessed with processes and procedures, Lean Six Sigma, the quality stuff. Just continuous improvement is what I'm really passionate about. And so 3 months ago, I transitioned into the nonprofit world and now focus on Latinx and STEM. So like, how do we help the Latino population understand our potential, even just within the growing fields of STEM? And so it's really exciting getting now to be traveling the nation, visiting all these amazing, schools, programs, STEM advocates like yourself. So it's something I'm really passionate about and really very grateful I get to do every day now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then we can have a totally different podcast just talking about manufacturing and
absolutely
improvement like all day. And I get so excited about that stuff too. And there's so few of us. I always try to find more people on Instagram and stuff, but I feel like the scientist community is so big, but the engineers community is still kind of growing. But I think also it comes from the restrictions one might have from the employer side. I always get some questions from like young engineers who are just starting out and they're like, oh, I want to post this and that, and I always get in trouble. I don't know what to post. That kind of, there's not enough independence in industries. I was telling my employer that we should do more. Like, look at all these other brands. Like, they do so much more. So I think manufacturing has some more way to go to utilize social media well, because you just cannot post your fun work all day.
It's funny because I think some companies even think that people don't care. Yeah. And there's so many of us as engineers, we're interested in this type of stuff. And so some companies I've had conversations with, that they say, well, no one's going to like this. It's just processes. It's just what we do as day to day. I'm like, no, there's people who enjoy this and they geek out just like we do. Right. And so why not give them what they're looking for?
Yeah, and I think it'll take some time. I think the baby boomers generation is still pretty much ruling the manufacturing world as compared to the tech industry, which was kind of grown by the millennials. So I'm excited to see what it'll look in 10 years and 20 years once the millennials will kind of take over some of this, some of these big positions and also branding and marketing and kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. So first of all, congratulations for your recent engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw that video so many times. I'm like, oh my God. And I was telling my husband, I said, these people got engaged. And he's like, do you just randomly celebrate engagements? I was like, no, they're my Instagram friends. But it was so cool. So, as we were talking before, relationships are a huge part of having a high functioning career or high demanding career. And you guys are, I would say first couple of STEM. So, tell us a little bit about how you guys met, and then we can explore that aspect of your relationship as well and your life as well.
Sure.
Would you like to start? You can say your story.
Okay. Well, so Fernando and I met at Facebook headquarters at a SHIP for the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers Leadership Conference. Mm-hmm. And so we were both new professional leaders through the rankings of volunteerism. I was a newly elected leader, and so I was actually his boss as he was a new local elected leader. And so I had just started reaching out to different people that I had on the list, right? These are the people that are in your region that are going to this event. And so I just started adding people on Facebook and introducing myself. And so sure enough, I had, known Fernando just through the internet and kind of saying, hey, I'm really interested in meeting you, having the opportunity. And once I met him there, it was just, we kind of, for whatever reason, ended up finding each other. And he'll probably explain a little bit more about that. But at the end of the last night, we ended up going out dancing, and it's like a big thing. Everyone always goes out dancing, salsa, merengue, bachata, to which both of us, like, we can dance, but that's not like our strong suit. And so they started playing a couple of country songs, and we were the only two on the dance floor. So then after that, it was kind of like, okay, like, you know, there's a little more going on here. So after that, we ended up having a 15-hour conversation, all the way up until like 8 o'clock in the morning in the lobby. So people were actually flying out. And we were like, we should probably like go take a shower and maybe grab some breakfast. So yeah, we kind of hit it off, and we're both not small talkers. So I guess you want to.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what attracted me to her, is the fact that we weren't talking about the weather. We weren't talking about like these like superficial topics, if you will. You know, we were really intentional, like very deliberate on like the conversations that we were having. And so we were talking about like our futures and the things that we enjoy and where we see ourselves in 5, 10 years from now. And just like talking about the organization, on the impact that we have the opportunity to really drive. And so like that really like got me going as far as like understanding what got her excited about life, and how important it is to like have someone who's going to be your cheerleader, someone who's going to be your advocate, your ambassador, and just really push you to want to do more with your life. And so I think from that conversation that was 15 hours, 16 hours, you know, we really got going. So after that, it was like a matter of like every weekend, you know, we kept keeping in contact. But what's crazy, it's like we started dating after a week of me knowing her. So I met her for the first time like there, and then like a week later we started dating. And so it's been a little bit of 4 years now since that I guess first encounter.
Yeah, and that's so cool, because it's so hard to find ambitious people. I feel like, especially as a woman who's ambitious, it's always hard to find, because there's so many negative connotations that come with it. But I'm so glad that you guys found each other. And you know, what makes you guys so ambitious about life? You know, I'm curious. Is it the background that you guys come from? Because I see your Instagram stories and I see everything that you guys do, and it's just so interesting that you're interested in the same kind of stuff. Like, who listens to Grant Cardone on a drive? Like, nobody does. Like, I can't get over it. And it's so funny, because my husband would make fun of Grant Cardone all day. Like, if I play it, he's like, you're so corny. Like, stop. Like, you know, don't do this. And so it's so interesting. Like, so tell me, is there something in your background that drives that ambition, or did you have role models that helped you shape this path?
Yeah, I think we were both in a very, I want to say like fresh open wound from like our previous just selves. And so Fernando had recently moved to Houston. You know, he had recently graduated. So he was only a year into his profession, and vice versa. So I had only graduated about a year and a half ago. And we had both kind of been like, you know, going out and having friends and spending all this time, kind of like the new professionals where you're still just enjoying being free. And then for me, like I started going in a downward spiral. So Fernando was like on his high of like being around all of his friends and like, you know, just enjoying life. And I was getting super obsessed with my work. And so I tell people all the time, like I was living just in chaos. You know, like my apartment was never straightened. Like I started just becoming an alcoholic because I couldn't sit with my feelings. And then we both came to a point where like, okay, this is enough. Like, you know, we need to find the next thing. And I think we both saw that leadership opportunity as, okay, we're going to take these roles very serious. This is our next phase in our life. We want to do something more. And so to Fernando's point, when we both kind of were sharing, hey, this is where I've been, this is what I've experienced. We have both similar backgrounds, but we're also very like almost mirror options of each other. So I'm a right and he's a left, or vice versa. So as much as we have kind of that streamlined focus, we come at it from different angles. So we automatically were like, oh, you have a totally different perspective. I wouldn't have thought that way. And so it just kind of helps us vibe. So sometimes, like I said, Grant Cardone was his first thing, and like Don Ruiz was mine, you know. So I'd say, oh, you have to read the 4 Agreements. And he's like, oh, you have to read, you know, Sell or Be Sold. And so there's always this kind of exchange of education and different types of understanding. I suppose for you. And
I think like this coming from the background that we come from, you know, being raised by a single mom, being raised with my grandma, you know, being dyslexic, you know, growing up very, very humble beginnings. And so like there was always the survival mode where you have to, you know, hustle, you have to think outside the box, because even though you follow the rules, sometimes that's not enough, right? And so like that was kind of like the background that I came from, as far as you have to put in the work in order to get opportunities that come your way. And even when you do work hard, it's still not enough. And so, you know, now that I'm in a position to where, you know, I've been fortunate to be in a country that gave me the opportunity to pursue an education, to pursue, you know, getting a STEM degree and really overcome all the issues that I had growing up. I see so many people with potential that just don't know how to take the next step. Mm-hmm. And so like, that's kind of the commitment that I've given myself, is like, I'm in a position to really be able to help people, find the spark, really find their why. That's like what there is, why it is that they're trying to pursue what they want to pursue. Mm-hmm. And so because I have the resources to do so, like, that's kind of why the commitment of wanting to help other people. And so I see like me and Brianne, like, really going after it as far as wanting to drive change in the community, and the fact that she's willing to let me pursue that, like, that in itself is a huge plus.
Yeah. And I feel like it's such a great thing that, you guys have that background, but also have kind of, taken the next step, as you just said, that, to a positive direction. And that's something very important. I think girls and women especially, I was listening to this podcast by Oprah where she was saying that women would marry someone just because they're cute or just because they have potential. And it's so funny because all of us do that. It's just such an overrated, like, sense of like, oh, you got to get married, but people don't realize that it's not just marriage. You have to love this person, but also you have to, like, as you said, vibe with this person, and kind of feed off of each other's energies, and then the fact that you mentioned, hustling. I think hustling is so huge in all minorities. I think all minority communities, as immigrants, we hustle. I'm first generation immigrant, and there is no question of like, oh, you're going to pass that opportunity. No. And it's opposite, because my husband is, of course, he's American, and he had snowplow parents, and he never had any like problems, all were like self-created problems. So it's such an interesting mix of like, oh, why won't you pass that opportunity? It's like, because I can't afford to. And it's like, why are you so driven? Because, as you said, it's just automatic. Like, that's the response we have to life. And it's great that you guys are, sharing it forward. So tell us a little bit about how you are inspiring the next generation, how you're helping people find their why, because I feel like that's such a tough question to answer for anyone. And it's such an evolving question at the same time. So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I will say you had a really good point earlier, and I just want to make sure again, like you were mentioning about like relationships and like what we invest in other people. And I think Fernando and I have made it a really, it's been rocky. So that, every relationship takes work. And I think the first 2 years of us were really just understanding like how he needs to be loved and how I needed to be loved. And again, we were both very ambitious, and it was like his thing versus my thing. And so probably about year 2, we were about to call it quits, and it was like, hey, this just isn't working. Like, I wish you all the best and I want to encourage you, but like, I don't feel, like you're in my corner. And he was feeling the same way. Like, I just feel like I'm on my side of, the room, and we're just kind of like roommates at that time. And so it really became, okay, well, what do I need to do to make you feel more supported? Or how can I help you in your, ventures? So then it became much more of like a life partnership. And I think even, we heard of like Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, and that's why they were saying it wasn't about, you have to fulfill me to make me feel important or make me happy. It's more like, whatever makes you happy, but like, how can I support you in that endeavor? And so, even just again, like, I think Jada says it perfectly. Like, they don't call each like what they have a marriage; they call it a life partnership. Yeah, and that's something that Fernando and I are very much more heightened, like acute to, because again, we had kind of just done the you do your thing, I do my thing, and like I love you and support you. But it's like you said, so much deeper than just having this infatuation or this, like we're gonna hold hands and we're gonna go dancing and like all the fun couple stuff. It's so much more than that. Like, I'm the one person dedicated to witnessing the rest of your life, and vice versa. So like, how can I do that to the best of my abilities? And what does that look like that you'd prefer me in order to witness and support and build each other up? So I think, again, that's just a much deeper level that, like you said, a lot of people don't consider and don't think about. And
it's especially in this Instagram world, I feel like we just see the, the highlight reel and everything's wonderful. Oh my God, she's getting engaged. Oh my God, everything's wonderful. Oh my God, the ring is, where is the ring, by the way? I don't see it.
It's getting signed. I know, it's getting signed.
I was kidding. But anyways, I feel like everyone just sees the outside of things, but there's so much work that goes into relationships, so much communication. We have a rule in our marriage. It's that we never go to bed angry, like never, like ever, like no matter what happens, we have to resolve it. We stay up all night, we have to resolve it, because otherwise you develop animosity. But we've learned it through mistakes. You have to make a lot of mistakes to learn.
We got plenty of those stories too.
But you have to get over it. I always tell all the young girls, especially who are trying to achieve something in STEM, a lot of times, like the book Lean In talks about, like women would sabotage their careers just because they think they're going to have a baby in 2 years. So I'm not going to apply to that job because I'm going to have a baby. So this is going to be an inconvenience to my employer. So let me not take this next step. But, you know, if you have a supportive system at home, and if we have these conversations that we're having, and if co-parenting becomes, you know, the way of parenting, the only way of parenting should be co-parenting, then a lot of us can, you know, do a lot more, especially with good relationships in our lives. Because now that I think back, I think everything like depression, everything that I've been through in my life was because I had like really toxic relationships. It had nothing to do with anything. It was just like, you know, toxic relationships. So it's, you know, it's definitely very important. So tell us again, we'll come back to Fernando's question after this, but while we're on this topic, tell us, if someone is looking for love, because a lot of us are looking for love, what should they be looking for in a person? What would be your advice?
I say for us, like, we were just following our passions. So, you know, Fernando mentioned earlier, like, really just wanting to leave an impact and make a difference in, you know, people that we saw needed help or weren't educated or didn't know about, you know, scholarships, resources, education. And so I would just always say, like, follow your passion, because what you're passionate about and you find something similar, like, that helps tie you together.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like you have to find, I mean, you said it earlier, right? You have to find something that vibes with you. And I think for me, it's like, you know, you can have this perfect list of what the ideal person looks like, and you can be like checking boxes. But at the end of the day, you know, you could always be looking for Miss Perfect or Mr. Perfect. But if you can find someone that you genuinely enjoy spending time with, and like that works, then go with it, right? Don't look for the what's not here. Just go with the what is here. Enjoy that. And if a few years from now you don't like it, then you move on. But at the end of the day, you know, we're looking about like the future. And so like those are some of the questions that I even ask myself now, right? Like when I proposed to Brianne, it's like, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? And right now the answer is yes. And so like, why not take that next step? And if 5 years from now, we talk about all the time, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're no longer happy, then we're no longer happy. And we either fix it or we move on. But at the end of the day, why should we be caught up on the hypothetical of maybe we don't work in the future and not give ourselves a chance? And I think so many people don't give themselves a chance because of the hypothetical that it may not work in the future.
Yeah. Also, like the idea of something better is out there.
Right.
Or and then just some people are like, I think people love to be miserable. I think it's a very innate need. I think people love to be like complaining or have, you know, these problems, or some of them are self-created. Like they don't even exist. Like you know, you could have gotten rid of this person like a long time ago, but you chose to keep them around and now you are having issues. But it's such an important thing to change your mindset, right? So I feel like you guys read a lot. I know you guys do so many, you know, things to keep in that mindset. I think that's also people don't do. They don't do the work on themselves. I feel like, you know, I found my husband within like maybe 2 months of working on myself, not even like forgetting about the outside world, forget about everything, just working on myself. And then I went to Texas and we had we did the first 8 months of meeting each other. We were long distance, but that 8 months was the only thing I needed. Like I was alone. I was doing the work, like putting in the work. And a lot of people don't put that work in and they expect people to love them. And it's like, but you don't love yourself. So how is anyone else going to love you? You know, Absolutely. So you have to come from that place of confidence as well. So what was your first date like? Oh, that was the 15-hour date.
Yeah. And then we went to brunch right after. Yeah.
So do you guys read together too?
Yeah, we tend to read different books, but they're like probably about 2 years ago, like I said, there was a chance where like he would finish a book and hand it to me and I'd finish a book and hand it to him. But yeah, we usually do. So I think he's much more into like investing in real estate right now. Yeah. And I'm much more on like a psychological kick. I just finished reading, you know, a therapist who is in therapy, you know, like you should talk to someone, and it's a phenomenal book. And so.
Well, yes. So actually when we met like that same weekend, she told me, you have to read this book.
Right.
And so I was wanting to come back to reading when we first met. So you have to read this book. So I went to the bookstore at the airport. I bought the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I finished the whole book like on the flight back to Houston. And that kind of kicked me back off onto reading the books. It's like, to her point, like every once in a while we'll read a few books. I think the last book that we read together was Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Principles of Life. 12 Rules of Life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So going back to all the work that you're doing to inspire other people to make the best of their lives and also to make a career in STEM. Tell us a little bit about that. Walk us through, what work you guys do as volunteers or as community advocates.
So I like to call myself a leadership coach. I think everything boils down to, if you can find the leader within yourself, everything else comes second, right? And so it also brings back to the conversation and relationships. It's not your partner's responsibility to make you happy. It's your own responsibility, and you guys, choose to be happy together. And so that's kind of the work that I do on the side. Is I try to go and help people by either inspiring them or motivating them or just helping them find the resources that are already available to them, and just making sure that they're taking the steps to take advantage of those steps. And so what that looks like is, I go to elementary schools and I give talks to kids. That's more from an inspirational standpoint, trying to connect the dots of what games they're currently playing and what their future can look like, right? And so I briefly talked about Minecraft. I talked to a lot of kids. I'm like, hey, do you like Minecraft? Do you like playing SimCity? Like, yeah, this is awesome. Well, that's what I do for a living. I use different software, but I build cities, right? One project at a time. So that's what it looks like in the middle school stage or elementary stage. The middle school stage is a little similar, but it's more focused on the shiny toys, right? And so it's like, hey, you see that Lamborghini, you see that fancy car, you could design that, you could build that, or you can one day afford it because people who pursue STEM careers are able to afford this type of things.
Yeah. And
so it kind of changes the theme, right? As you go on in age, there's different things that motivate people in different ways. And I think by the time you get to high school, it's more from the leadership standpoint, right? Because at that point, I don't want to say it's too late, but for the most part, it's a little bit too late, right? If they don't like math, if they don't like science, it's difficult to really get them motivated about wanting to pursue that career. So at that point, it's really talking to the kids who do enjoy those subjects and then connecting the dots for them as to what steps they can take to the next level. And so I think that the last few things that I work on is more on the collegiate level, ensuring that we're graduating people successfully. Because it's one thing for them to graduate, but another for them to graduate successfully. Because I know a lot of people who have STEM degrees and have no jobs, and that just, it breaks my heart, right? And then the professionals, a lot of them, first generation, they get their first big boy, big girl job. They're making more money than their parents did in the whole year, in their first paycheck. And they're like, I made it. This is it. I'm like, no, there's so much more potential for you. You need that corner office. You need that middle management and keep pushing on. And so that's kind of what I do on the side is finding ways to make sure that they're taking the steps to take the next level or get to the next level. And in doing so, I've seen a lot of growth in my own personal career.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think it's such an important discussion to have. And, as you said about money, that's my biggest drive to do the show, is to tell women and minorities that this is your way out. This is how you create change, because STEM jobs pay 35% more than other jobs. It's crazy. And, your salaries can double in 5 years, and so on and so forth. And money is a great motivator. I just hope that people see that potential in STEM careers and don't get stuck on math and, I feel like there's so much math around it. I mean, we don't do math at work.
And that's exactly, so I was I know Fernando's talking about all his side. So but so he focuses a lot more on the leadership piece. Yeah. And for me, I focus a lot on the personal development, the same way that you were saying, we have to view ourselves as a system. And so I know self care and self-love, or even mental health is now a big, part of the discussion. And a big piece that I see we're missing time and time again, and a lot of the conversations I have, is actually emotional health. Is because, it's one thing to understand how you work and how you motivate yourself, but it's another to understand the resources. If you have a broken arm, you don't question that you go to the ER. Well, if something happens, traumatic in your life, or even you're just sad and you don't know how to deal with it right now, like you said, in this world of, instant gratification of social media, we just see all the highlight reels and it's oh, I need to hustle. I need to, do more. But in reality, sometimes you just need to sit and watch a sad movie, cry it out so you can get over it. And then so many of us, especially women, we're why am I crying at work? Or why am I picking fights with my partner? And a lot of times it's because we're not dealing with whatever it is, imposter syndrome or the frustration or just the pure right? Like I'm not happy with myself. I don't know my purpose. And so again, like listening to what your body is saying, to your emotions, and like learning to process that. Like you're saying, like in manufacturing, we know that there's a process, and when something's not working, like you have to review the whole thing and see like where those holes are, how we can improve it, make little tweaks. And then, to me, I very much in the design engineering process, right? Like you have a hypothesis, test it out. And when you don't get the result you're looking for, then you just go back and do reiterations. And so it's very much, again, an engineering process, but in life, it's not black or white. Like it doesn't give you a red, yellow, green flag. And so you have to kind of use intuition, plug in different resources. And so that's the part where I want people to understand, like you can be frustrated and that's okay, but you don't have to stay there. And so my one slogan, my kind of motto for life is everything in life is a choice. And you have the power to choose. Don't let that, whether it be defined by your circumstance, your family, again, your partner, like whatever it is, you can always change, level up, move, like completely just, pull out another book, a whole different map. Like there's so many different opportunities, especially in the world today. You just have to like be open enough. I always say, you're only as limited by your own imagination. And so again, we're both doing it and developing people, but in a totally different space. But at the end of the day, again, just giving these people options, right? Just opening their eyes to what could be. Yeah.
Especially, as you said, you guys have a background of being raised by really strong single moms. And I feel like there's so many kids out there who have similar situations where they can definitely use these skills and tools actually that can help them overcome that narrative that's going on in their head, right? So a lot of the narrative that goes on constantly is what we're telling ourselves. You can't do this because you're poor. Can't do this because your situation is this way. But how do you like kind of stop the narrative and kind of have the life that you really want? And I think you guys are setting up really great examples and role models, because the next generation is going to see you like, okay, if they can do it and I can do it too, because it's such a powerful thing. Because ever since I've started this show, I've seen so many people do so many great things. And I'm like, oh my God, if she can do it, I can do it too. Like that kind of really motivates people at all age groups and of course of all backgrounds, especially in minorities. And in STEM and engineering, there's so few. They're like single-digit women percentage in mechanical engineering. Like, it's crazy. I just hope to see more engineers in the U.S. at least. I don't know about the rest of the world.
And I think that's like the huge part of it, like the narrative, right? I mean, it's very easy to play the victim game.
Yeah.
And I know it's tough for some people to kind of hear that. But at the end of the day, like you can't be a victim as far as your circumstances go. It's very easy for me to have grown up and say, well, I grew up poor, or I grew up by a single mom, or I'm dyslexic, I failed the first grade. But at the end of the day, like all of those things made me better, right? And so it's a little cliche sometimes that if it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger. But it couldn't be more further from the truth, right? And so even as a working professional, you could go into a situation and say, well, I'm not being promoted because people got favorites, or I don't get the opportunity because I'm a woman. Well, I mean, yes, that could be true, but at the end of the day, what are the skills that you're learning, right? And so we see it all the time with the work that we do is, we got people who we encourage to go and talk to kids in elementary school. And they're like, well, I'm just talking to kids. I'm like, no, you're working on your public speaking. You're working on your leadership skills. You're working on having more executive presence. And you're doing all of this with a low risk, right? High reward, but low risk. Yeah. And so if you make a mistake, these kids are not going to care because they don't really know that you're making a mistake. And so like things like that, where people just can't connect the dots and see in retrospect the skills that they're gaining from just being able to work on themselves. And I think, when we play the victim, we just let all of these issues overcome us and say, well, poor me, I need somebody to come and comfort me versus, hey, I'm a badass because I'm getting through this.
Yeah. And I think women do this all the time, especially thanks to Disney. They feel like they need to be rescued. Of course, I'm generalizing, but the major narrative is around, I need to be rescued and someone needs to love me. And this is really a huge problem, I think, in just women's confidence levels and how they see the world is really affected by this kind of thinking. And
then what's even worse now, it's exactly to your point, is I was exact opposite. And so then so many of, I think, again, the good intention of feminism is like, well, I don't need a man. Well, yes, that's true. But if you can't go the total opposite and be like, be a man hater, right? Because they're allies, and two, like sometimes you do want a relationship, but you can't like say I don't need you. And so I went exact opposite, and not that I was verbalizing it, But for me, I like had up this armor and I was just ready to fight. So like the first year of our life, I was so defensive. Like I wanted to fight him on everything. Everything was a competition. So where like, you know, he would just sit down and like, you know, with tears in his eyes say like, I love you. Like, I don't want to, like, I'm not trying to battle you on this. Like I want to help you be successful. But because like you said, as a woman engineer, like I always had to talk 10 times louder and I always had to reiterate and I like always had to go to fight to war, like with everything I did. Like it was so hard for me to accept like, oh, you want what's best for me? Like, oh, you actually want to love me and take care of me. And it's not a bad thing to want to be taken care of either. And I think, again, you have the choice, which is why I go back to this. Like, you can choose to want to be taken care of, or you can choose to like be by yourself. Like you have the power to do so. But when you find someone, again, you have to learn how to compromise. And so with that, a lot of times, even the gender roles are kind of switched. Like Fernando cooks 98% of the time. And, you know, and vice versa. So there's a lot of things that I do that, you know, even like fixing the dryer, right? Or like Fernando was, you know, test driving his cars and they were telling him about the liter, you know, the cylinders and how many liters, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't know any of that. Like, that's her thing. Yeah. And the guys, you know, like, what? Yeah. Stuff where even just the gender roles, it doesn't make him less, you know, manly that he cooks. It just means I have an amazing chef in the kitchen, you know? And so, but understanding again that it's a very fine line. And I think, you know, you've read it too, but the dichotomy of leadership is there's always this fine line that you could go over too board on one side and like totally miss out on the other good pros of, you know, the other side. Yeah. So just understanding that there is that middle ground. And I think, again, like so many women that are empowered and they get all this, don't really think critically about it. Yes, you know, promote yourself and advocate, but like don't do it at the expense of putting someone else down.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important because I don't agree with like having one gender over the other. The whole species would die. Like we need both the genders to reproduce, which is one of our basic needs. Right. And I feel like, you know, that's one thing that we've tried to do with the show is we're not saying that women in STEM is the only way, you know. There's so many allies and our lives are so much more than just STEM, right?
And if I can jump in, like as a male, right? You said it yourself, you're allies. Yeah. I'm not your white knight. I'm not your knight in shining armor. Yeah. And I think like I've seen it so many times, time and time again, where, you know, a woman is facing issues, you know, in the workplace or an organization, whatever the case is, and men want to jump in and save them. Like it's like, dude, it's not your job. Like let them fight their battles. Just make sure that they know that you're there. And at the end of the day, if they need you, they're going to ask you. But if you keep fighting their fights for them, they're never going to be able to find the respect that they're looking for. Yeah,
because you got to fix the systemic problems, right? So you got to bring it up in your boys club, and you got to bring it up at the decision-making things, and you got to bring it up when someone interrupts in the meeting, and you got to say like, no, let her finish. You know, that's allies. Like, and you're right. Like, we don't need to be saved, but at the same time, we don't need to fight each other, you know, as like two genders to prove a point, because. You know, feminism is great, and I think there is still need for it, but I just don't know if the style of advocacy needs to be the way it was in the 60s, you know. Right. You know, I think there is more room for collaboration and growth together than separately. And, you know, and I think we need more people like Fernando, and we need more people like who trust women with, you know, high-powered jobs and is their role reversals, you know, but that's very important because, again, you can't, you know, one of the things that stops women from doing more in careers is taking care of the house, or cooking, or cleaning, taking care of the child, or, you know, all these little chores that come out of of nowhere. Like my mom used to work growing up. I don't think she slept more than 4 hours because, you know, my dad wouldn't pick up a glass. Like he wouldn't. Like that was something that guys don't do in India. And it's so refreshing, like, for my husband to do everything. Like, he does everything. He's like a little minion. He's running around all the time. I don't get up from the couch. I am just, like, chilling all the time. And my mom's like, oh, my God, I wish I had, like, 1% of this life, you know? So there's good change happening for sure. But I just hope that we can, you know, continue to talk about it and push for it. And also, you know, from your story, I hope people can see that STEM can give you not just a wonderful life, but also a wonderful life partner, which is so cute. Yeah. So tell us, what has been the hardest thing in your relationship, and what has been the easiest thing in your relationship in context with your careers in STEM?
Sure. So I know for me, and I'm not sure if Fernando's going to talk about the same thing, but whenever I got laid off, it was really hard for us. Like I said, that was probably about a year and a half in. I had actually just switched jobs. Again, I was like traveling internationally, and then it all kind of came to a halt right before I had that job for a year. So like I said, our relationship had been about a year and a half. And especially in the Latino population, we're very particular about our finances. Like that's such a personal thing. Yeah. And so again, we were, you pay your half, I pay my half, and like we were living together. But like I was very like, that's, that's my debt. Like this is how I live. If I want to spend money somewhere else, like I have the right to do that. And it was very uncomfortable for Fernando because even though I lived, lower income, I was never like poor or in need. And whereas he was very much, paycheck to paycheck, sometimes he would have to, knock on doors and sell, slices of cake to make sure that they had food on the table. And so he was just always very heightened, sensitive to finances. And so that was something that was very difficult for us to like kind of get through. Yeah. But even more so than now for me, I was like, okay, well, I'm, have this vision and this dream to like, start my own consulting firm. And for him, I think it was a place where he was still finding like his purpose and whether or not, his passion was going to be either his full-time gig or his passion project. And so for him to see me be able to go out and start my own consulting firm, I think was difficult, both just in our relationship and then for both of us personally, because he would come home and say like, oh, what did you do with your business today? And so in his mind, he was like, these are the things she should be doing. And for me, I'm like, well, I'm still trying to figure it out. This is why I'm kind of testing the waters. And so it very much put a really hard strain on our relationship because for him, he already felt unsure and insecure just on like the finances part. And then on top of like having a business in the house. So it was a lot of tension on both of us in the situation. So I think that was definitely like our hardest for me on my side.
Yeah, I would agree. I think for me, it's like financial security is a huge thing, growing up, not having enough. Yeah. It was always like, what's next, right? Are we going to, there was even a point where they took all our furniture and we were eating it on top of a box. And so I remember like watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid and, they used to sit on the floor, right, eating on the table. And so me and my brother would joke around. It's like, oh, we're Chinese, right? We're eating on the floor. And we're like, we have like this Chinese dining table, but it was a box. And so like we got to a point where we were living like that. And so, memories like that always came back. And as a working professional, like I'm finally at a point where I'm making decent money. I want to pay off my debt so that I can help my mom, pursue her goals. But at the end of the day, like the fact that she wasn't being open with her finances gave me an issue with what if she can't cover the bills next month? Yeah. And she tells me like the week before, like, hey, I can't cover this. And now I'm screwed, right? And so like that really, gave me a problem with not knowing what was going to happen. And so I've always been like a very big, like a plan and very like everything has to go by the plan. And she's more of like the loosey-goosey, like
go with the flow.
So like that I think that was like the biggest strain. And from like the business perspective, she kind of hit it on the nail. Like it for me, it was you take steps, right, to grow your business. And I wasn't seeing those steps. So I was trying to find reassurance through her steps and her building her business. So even though she didn't want to give me the numbers on the money side, at least I knew she was making money somewhere else or taking the steps to grow the business. And so like that was one of the biggest issues. But on the flip side, I think the easiest thing from our relationship has been like finding opportunities to help other people. We've never, shied away from like coming from a restaurant and taking our leftovers and giving them to a homeless man, or just like going intentionally and buying someone food, or going to a school on our vacation days to go talk to kids. Like giving what we have, the little that it may be, to other people has been the easiest thing. And I think it's been like a reassurance to me that it doesn't matter, like if we do end up poor one day, we're going to find a way to, make it happen. And we're going to be able to make ourselves happy and other people happy at the same time.
Yeah. And I think the easiest for me has always just been communication. Again, it wasn't even a first date. Like we were just getting to know each other, which now, in translation, it was a first date. But the fact that we were just very open and honest from the very beginning. I always tell people, and Fernando said it earlier, is, I wouldn't have imagined that would have been my life partner. And it's not that, again, he's not great. It was just like, that wasn't what I imagined. I was like, oh, I need to be loved like this. When that need in my head was actually a want. And so a lot of times, I was getting to is Fernando actually is the mirror that I have to face sometimes, because he's very honest, but it comes from a place of love. He wants me to be better, and so he pushes me. So even yesterday, I was just stressed out and my job was frustrating. And so I just sat there and like cried. And I was like, well, maybe I'm just not meant to do this. And he was like, no, you're giving up. And, like that, like, it's going to be hard, but you have to understand, like, this is 2% of the impact you're making. Like, you have 98%, and like, you can't be so invested in this. And that's something that I'm a very emotional investor. I wear my heart on my sleeve because it means the world to me. There's so much opportunity for lives to be changed. And in moments of frustration, again, when I could have just quit, or like you said, someone that wouldn't have, seen my potential or know what I'm capable of, he could have easily said, like, yeah, you're right. Find another job. You could be an engineer any other time. He a lot of times, again, most of the time, was just that communication of, he's real with me enough, but like can give me a hug and like, let me cry. But he's very real, so even when we were talking about like not going to bed mad, if I'm like being a brat or I'm just like in a bad mood, like he'll, come and sit right beside me. And I'm like, I don't want to look at you right now. Well, like, you're going to have to, get over it. So it's just that kind of stuff where we know how to, I guess we respect each other's boundaries, but we continuously communicate, hey, this is what I'm feeling, or this is what I'm seeing from you that you may not be aware of. So we're kind of, again, each other's mirrors, and we help each other see each other's blind spots, but in a very loving and supportive way.
Yeah. And I think that's so important that a lot of people don't put in that work. Like, they just don't say what's on their mind, which is, you would think that's the obvious thing to do, but they just don't do that. And then they have so much miscommunication, like, oh, why is he not talking to me? Oh, maybe this is that. And then, Brené Brown has that special on Netflix where she talks about, I was thinking about all these things, and my husband had no clue. Like, he was thinking about totally different.
Yeah.
I drove myself crazy that he doesn't love me anymore. And then I got out of the water and I told him, like, this is what I'm thinking. And he's like, you're crazy, because I was literally just trying to like live through that swim.
Yeah, I was just trying to keep swimming. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's such an important lesson for all the young professionals, especially people who are just getting out of college, getting out of high school, saying bye to their high school sweethearts and, trying to move to different cities for jobs and may not be able to take their partners with them. I think it's so important that this time is important to learn about yourself and to learn your style of communication, but also get vulnerable and honest about what you feel, how you're going to say this to another person, but always say it like, no matter what, like, you will never regret that you said your mind,
right?
Whether it's in a relationship or at work, or, you should be able to say your mind, which is extremely important.
I think the two things that I would share is like, there's a growth through struggle.
Yeah.
And like, you have to share that struggle with each other. You have to vocally like say like what you're struggling with, and you guys can both grow that way. And the other thing is like, it's not a power struggle. It's not a power dynamic. Like, there is no winning. Like, if you win by making them upset, like, you lost.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're able to overcome that and the realization that you're not trying to battle it out, you grow so much more in your relationship.
Yeah. But again, you need to know yourself. So I think you guys have done the work on yourself first to be able to be open and, forgiving and understanding. But that's one thing that I feel like everyone should take from your story is that, you guys have done that work. You continue to do that work. They say if you don't grow together, you grow apart. So you have to keep growing together. That's also very important. And so what will be your love advice to all our STEMists out there, men and women both? What will be that one big advice they can take from your story?
Yeah, I would say, and it's something like to just reiterate, but expand on Fernando's point, is I think with engineers and very, STEM oriented thinking, like, we're very tactical and it's very black or white, X equals 2 or it doesn't. And in life and in love, it's not like that at all. Again, like, sometimes I feel a certain way and I'll tell him, like, when you said this is how it made me feel. And even in the beginning of our relationship, he would say, like, well, that's not what I meant. And I'm like, right, but that's how it made me feel. So one, I would have to say, I can't take it for face value all the time. And then for him, it was, I have to be more conscious because this could be a trigger, or that she could be reactive, or how could this be perceived? So there's always room for improvement. And like you said earlier, it's not like I'm right, you're wrong. It's like, okay, how can I be better? How can I better love you, better serve you, better communicate with you? And if we're both doing that, then we're constantly growing. And we're never going to be 100%. There's always going to be some off weekends or off days. But the more that, like you said, we're coming from a place of service and understanding from one another, like, hey, this is how it came off. Am I right or am I wrong? This is what I was thinking. Or, hey, it really hurt my feelings when you said this. Like you said, just kind of talking through that makes a huge difference. And again, in the tactical world, in our engineering brains, like that's not usually how it happens.
Yeah, definitely.
I think for me, I'm sure Brianne would also say this, is don't love the way you want to be loved. You know, I don't know the book very well, but Brianne does, like the 5 love languages. And so like, I think a story that I can share is, for a while I was loving Brianne like the way I wanted to be loved. And so there was times where, during that first year, 2 years, where we were really struggling, we almost hit quits. I was taking her out to eat like every night. I was, doing all these little things that I thought, she wanted, and come and find out, she was like, "You're just not loving me the way I don't feel loved." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm taking you out to dinner every weekday. Like, I'm spending all this money. Like, I'm not hitting my financial goals. Like, what else do you want from me? Like, I'm buying you this and all these different things." And she's like, "We're just going out to dinner. What do you mean you're taking me out to dinner? We got to eat." I'm like, "Oh shit." Like, yeah. And so like, it made me realize that the way I was showing affection financially, like trying to show her that I cared, that I was willing to but put some of my goals aside for her, she wasn't seeing it that way. And so it wasn't until I started loving her the way she needed to be loved that we really started growing as a relationship. And so if I would have kept loving her how I wanted to be loved, we would have not been, I guess we wouldn't be here right now, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing from a love standpoint is the golden rule is not the golden rule. Like, don't do that. It's a platinum rule.
Yeah, no, that's so sweet. That's wonderful. And before we let you go, we would like to know your favorite books or book.
Okay, so we got a long list. I'm gonna make it easy.
I know.
And I think for me, it's Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Yeah. Like that is like, if you can start with that book and you truly understand where you come from and why it is that you're trying to go in a direction, everything else will come second.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, for me, and Fernando last, because I don't have like a favorite number one of anything. But so I guess my number one book, or the first one that really meant a lot to me, was Love by Leo Buscaglia. And it's not about just love, like romantic love about yourself, love about your community, people, understanding other people. Another one that was really eye-opening is Dale Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. Like just understanding like the motivations and the principles. Again, it was just eye-opening. And I still actually have it. Like I have a picture and saved, and just to remind myself of that kind of stuff when dealing with people. The second one was, again, the 4 agreements, like simply just living your life, not taking it personally, doing the best that you can, and like letting it go after that, was, again, just life-changing. And then I would probably say The Power of Habit. Again, just understanding like, how do I get better? How do I, make myself? And then the last one would be With a Growth Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. Again, just like taking time to slow down, understanding why it is, and then giving yourself that permission, the grace to just kind of move forward. Those books were really, like you said, kind of the beginning of my personal development, but just opened up my eyes so much, and to be open to learning, development in general, and like, how do you go about it? So those, like I said, have to be my top, I guess, 5.
We can keep going. Like,
I know, like I said, we can go for days.
I know, because Dale Carnegie's book is incredible. I feel like everyone should read it.
Yes.
It was written 82 years ago.
I know.
And I can't believe like everything in that book is still like freaking relevant. And
right.
The Power of Habit. Did you know that he has a podcast?
I think so.
Charles Dick. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no clue he had a podcast. So I
was like, there's so many podcasts, like I can't even keep up with how many. I'm like, I'll listen to this episode today.
And actually getting to that topic, Fernando has a podcast and you're coming up with your podcast. Can you share a little bit about those two with us real quick?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Dealing with Life Stuff Podcast. It's a podcast dedicated to the young professional or those seeking to start their career. And so it shares practical, tactical, strategic advice from a perspective of 2 millennials in the real estate industry. I'm one of the, I guess the co-host there is, I'm the engineering guy, and then I also got Randy, and so he is the real estate guy. And so we have similar backgrounds, but we try to share our perspectives on how people can maneuver in, move around in their career to really get a better idea of how they can grow and really build a network of people that are going to help them be successful.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then for mine, it'll be launching probably in the next couple of weeks, so more fall 2019. But I'm just sharing honest, open, vulnerable, and triumphant accounts of my own life, whether it be through, work, life, kind of what my plans for the future are and how moving that forward looks like. So it's much more a series of kind of just self-discovery through life, personal, professional, and leadership development, and kind of what that looks like, what I've learned, as well as experiences through either coaching opportunities, mentees, or even what I've heard and learned through my mentors.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then we'll link the shows in the episode notes if yours is live by then. And if not, then we'll link to your website. And so people can find you and follow you guys, because you guys are just incredible. And we wish you all the best. And we hope they will be invited to the wedding, and we'll get recorded.
Yeah, then you can come back to Texas, right? You still so we're shooting for Austin.
We'll be your podcast sponsors.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do like a podcast session in the
Yeah,
that'll be so cool. But yeah, no, thank you so much again for taking the time. I know you're always traveling and you're so busy, so I really appreciate that you took the time, and I'm so excited to see that you guys are spreading so much hope and so much great stuff that nobody talks about, in the STEM world. And it's always a delight to see engineers, as I said in the beginning. So thank you so much for your time.
And I think the same goes to you, right? Thank you for creating this platform for people to really be able to come and like network with one another and just learn from each other, right? There's a big need and a great opportunity that I guess you're taking advantage of. And so kudos to you for really, stepping up in this space and filling it, or what is it called? Filling in the void or filling in the gap. Mm-hmm. So again, congrats to you.
Yes, thank you, Prasha. We really appreciate it. And we're so honored. I mean, we love your content, again, your features, your podcast. So thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you very much for being the first couple on the show. And that was Brianne and Fernando with their amazing STEM story. Please follow them by using the links in the episode notes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again next week. Bye.